More than 350 elementary school students gathered in a cemetery in New Westminster earlier this month for a poppy laying ceremony honoring Canada's war dead. The students were taking part in a No Stone Left Alone event, which teaches youngsters about the sacrifice and service of veterans while involving them in the memorial to put a poppy on every veteran's headstone. Organizers say that over 450 poppies were placed on headstones at the Fraser Cemetery, and similar ceremonies are planned over the next week. The northeastern BC community of Taylor holds an event at the Peace Valley Cemetery on November 10th, and events are also scheduled in Houston, Merritt, Salmon Arm, Salt Spring Island, and numerous other locations leading up to Remembrance Day. Now, joining us to discuss this foundation's overall mission to honor, educate, and remember is Randall Purvis, Vice Chairman at the No Stone Left Alone Memorial Foundation. Thank you very much for joining us today, Mr. Purvis.
Great to meet you and see you today.
So, what was the inspiration behind creating this program?
So, 52 years ago, my wife's mother was sadly passing away, and the last thing she said to her was, "Don't forget me on Armistice Day." So, my pretty wife was 12, and she went to the cemetery and placed a poppy on her mother's headstone on November 11th. And every year since, she has placed a poppy on her mother's headstone and then her father's. So fast forward several years, we had our children, and one day we're at the cemetery. We went to the cenotaph, and our youngest daughter said, "Why don't all the headstones have a poppy?" So the next year we placed 4,300 poppies in Beachmont Cemetery here in Edmonton, and last year almost 80,000 in 226 locations across Canada, America, and Europe.
And why is it important to place a poppy on the headstone of every veteran?
Well, we've had that question many times, and sometimes, to be honest, we actually have children and sometimes seniors place stones with poppies on them. Each location is a little bit different, but the symbol of the poppy is so near and dear to to my wife's mother's heart. That was the connection. That is what we wear across our hearts or on our hearts on the left side of our lapels in Canada and the Commonwealth. And that was the symbol that made the most sense to us and still does.
And you mentioned that this has become an international endeavor. How has the program expanded over the past years, both inside and outside of Canada?
Well, it's interesting. We don't have a huge budget. We're a very small charity with 18,000 volunteers, but we just had interest. We've had interest in South Africa, and the first international one was Krakow, Poland. That's one thing led to another, and we did our first ceremony 7 years ago in Krakow, and we just did our seventh one in Krakow on September the 5th. And Krakow's very important to us because it's very close to the Ukrainian border. And now in our school, School 58 in Krakow, we have students from the Ukraine singing "O Canada" in English there and honoring 15 Canadian soldiers and 265 Allied soldiers. And it really warms our hearts that the service of our Canadian Armed Forces is being recognized by children, not all over the world, but in a lot of places all over Europe.
And on that note of young people, what has been the response from young people when it comes to remembering those who have made the ultimate sacrifice?
Well, it's the essence of what we do. It's the children getting out of the classroom, going to a cemetery, and if they're lucky, they've never been to a cemetery. They get there, they see a massive number of headstones, and they go up to a headstone. Their instructions are to look at the headstone, read the name of the soldier and the rank wherever possible, and say thank you. And they place a poppy either at the base of the headstone or on top. And that moment is a watershed moment for many, many students. And we know this by the thousands of reflection letters that come in French, English, Polish, to tell us what it meant to them. And some of the letters just tell you that that moment was very, very important to them.
And these reflection letters, are all of the students who participate in your programs encouraged to write them?
Absolutely. And sometimes we get pictures. We got some pictures the other day, and the pictures are just as meaningful. You know.
Well, Mr. Purvis, I very much appreciate what your foundation is doing, and I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us on Forum Daily.
Well, we're honored to be a part of your program today, and thanks for having us.